Hi, I'm Deborah from the Green River. I want to share with you one of my breakfast recipes, cream scones. It's an oft-requested recipe by guests who often say that they don't like scones particularly, but that these are so light and fluffy. I'm not a great baker by any means, but I've learned a few things about quick breads and I want to share that with you. So this is an easy recipe. We're starting with 2 cups of white flour, 1/4 cup of sugar. I'm going to mix that up, and then I'm going to cut 5 tablespoons of butter into it. The butter should be cold, and I'm always about not having to wash too many dishes. So you'll see my tricks for doing that. Anyway, just cut the butter in. I use salted butter as opposed to sweet butter, and so I don't add the salt. Ordinarily you'd add 1/4 teaspoon of salt to this. One of my guests told me actually that sweet butter has MSG added to it to give it some flavor, so now I buy salted butter all the time because who needs the MSG? So I've put the butter in here, and I'm going to get my kind of old-fashioned butter cutter. So I've cut 5 tablespoons of salted butter in here. I don't even own a Cuisinart, so I just do this the old-fashioned way, but it works. You just cut the butter up with this rocking motion, and you want the butter to end up being sort of pea-sized. Now I'm going to whisk 1 egg. I'm going to add a cup of heavy cream, and it really needs to be heavy cream. I've tried doing this with milk or half and half, and I say to guests, don't even bother. I'm not going to give you the recipe if you're not going to do it with heavy cream and whole and butter, because that's what makes it light, is the fat content. So just eat 1. And the recipe calls for a teaspoon of vanilla, and I don't really measure. And then we just add that in. A scone is a quick bread, so no yeast is involved. So you don't want to handle it all that much, or you start to develop the gluten, which is what can make bread like this tough. So pretty quickly, you want to just get your hands into it. So this dough is a little wetter than I'd like it to be. And actually, when I'm making the scones, I don't usually measure out a whole cup and pour it in. I kind of add what I think is the right amount to the egg and leave myself some room to add a little bit more cream as I go along if I need it. I'm going to add a little flour so that the dough is easy to handle and not sticking too much to my hands. And a little more. And just cut it into halves, and then again into quarters. And I'm going to transfer this onto a tray. You don't need to put anything on that cooking tray. You don't have to grease it. And again, this batter is still a little too wet. So a good trick that a friend of mine who went to the Culinary Institute down in Hyde Park taught me was that it's fine to freeze the dough at this point. So I would make use all three balls of dough, and then I would, whatever I'm not cooking, I would just fold the parchment paper over and just put that into a plastic bag and on a little cookie tray and freeze it until these would hold their shape. So the fresh ones are going to go in a 400-degree oven for about 12 to 15 minutes. I just watch them. But if I'm doing the frozen dough, if I'm taking that out in the morning, you would again put it on a bare cookie tray, put it in a 350-degree oven for 20 minutes, and they turn out perfect, even though you wouldn't think so because you're putting a frozen piece of dough in the oven. And the last thing I'm going to do before I put these in the oven is just to sprinkle a little bit of sanding sugar on them. Just gives them kind of a little extra. And it goes right into a 350-degree oven for 12 minutes, then take a look at it. Maybe you need 15 minutes. And they're great. They don't even need butter because the 5 tablespoons of butter that I put in there, these really have a lot of taste. I do serve them with Beth's Farm Kitchen jams, but they don't need butter. Okay, so these have been baking for 12 minutes. I check them and put them in for a couple of more minutes. So they should be ready. And as I say, I like to serve those just with jam. So there you have it, cream scones from the Innkeeper River. Thanks for watching.